Hi friends, Crystal here from Homemaking on the Homestead, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing a Q&A. I got a question in the comment section a while back, and it concerned husbands who work night shift. And how do you do life? Let me read the question to you. I need reading glasses. I'm rocking my contacts today, and I don't wear them all the time. And I need reading glasses. Here, the question comes from Kemp Freehold. Could you do a video on how you worked life with kids and dad working night shift? And then she also said, my husband has taken a new job and he'll be working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. We have 4 children who I homeschooled, ages 10 down to 2. Okay, you definitely have your hands full for sure. We tend to think life in terms of what is normal, and what is the typical normal is that, you know, dad leaves in the morning to go to work and you're at home with the children, and he doesn't come home until later in the evening, and you have a nice big chunk in your day to get all the things done that you need to get done. But what happens when that isn't your reality, or that isn't your normal? My husband was an aircraft mechanic, and I didn't even realize it till he got his job, but you know, airplanes fly during the day and they get all their maintenance done on them at night. So the majority of the people that worked for the airline in this field worked the night shift. And there were day shift jobs available, but you had to have a lot of seniority to finally be able to be eligible for those, either days or swing shift. So my husband left at night at around 7, and he came home around 7 in the morning. He worked 4 days a week and had 3 days off. So he worked 10-hour days, and with commuting, he was gone for about 12 hours. So how do you manage life when your husband has that type of a shift? And you know, obviously the airline industry isn't the only one that has shifts like that. There's the, you know, doctors, nurses, hospital workers, emergency responders, you know, maybe other types of factory workers, and so it's not that uncommon. But when you're raising kids and you're trying to homeschool, it can be a little bit of a challenge to figure out how to work around that. One of the first things that I did was to try to follow my husband's schedule a bit, and my kids didn't have really any consistency that way, and it didn't take long for me to realize that I needed to keep my schedule and my kids' schedule. Monday through Friday we homeschool in the mornings, and our afternoons are for other types of things. And even though my husband also rarely had weekends off, if ever. I don't know that he ever did. Because there's so many people and it's a 24/7 operation. So again, higher seniority means you might get better days off. So he was also home during the week a lot. But regardless, I tried to keep my kids' schedule and my schedule pretty consistent. The graveyard shift does have a few benefits. My husband could choose to come home and stay up in the morning and then go to bed around 10 or 11 in the morning and get his sleep, or he could come home and go right to bed and be up in the evenings. Either way, he did both those things over the years. If he came home in the morning, he would often be able to spend time with the kids, maybe have breakfast with them. Since we homeschooled and we were both very dedicated to homeschooling, he did homeschooling with them. He often did math with the older kids, so the morning time would be time he could go over lessons with them, or you know, discuss any problems that they might be having in their math. If he went right to bed, then he might do that with them after he got up. In the evenings, he could get up and still have dinner with us. He liked to read to the kids, and so in the evenings he would read books to the kids before he would leave for work. The next biggest thing when you have a husband that's sleeping days and you have children, I had 8 of them, and so that's a lot of noise in the house. And I used to get, people would comment about my kids that they were so quiet. And I will have to say that I basically taught them how to be quiet. From the time they were little, there was always the, shh, daddy's sleeping, keep your voices down. And pretty soon they learned to just function at a quieter level in the house. And I was always a gentle reminder to them. There's no point in yelling at them to be quiet. That does not work. So you lead by example, and you gently remind them that they need to be quiet. The other thing that I would do with them in the mornings is to, especially when he would go to sleep, is I would get them outside. And when I lived in the city, we would just all go out and walk. And we did it even in the rain. It didn't matter. Just go out and work off all those wiggles and all that energy. It makes it a lot easier for them to, number one, come back and concentrate on their schoolwork, but also to be quiet. When we moved out into the country, of course, I would just send them outside for a little while to play. And that would help just reduce the noise level when they came back in. My husband also used earplugs, and that does deaden the sound. It does not take away all of it, but the earplugs were very helpful. We also had room darkening shades in there and a fan running, so it made it a lot easier for him to be able to sleep, and the noises in the background could be drowned out easily. And I think the biggest part for a wife who has a husband that works the night shift like that is to be as much support to her husband as possible. And things like the setting up the room so it's a peaceful place for him to sleep, and keeping the kids quiet is really good. And, you know, I always made sure by the time he was heading out the door for work that he had a hot cup of coffee and he had his lunch packed. And so I did what I could to make the life run as smoothly as possible. Our house only had one bathroom, and it was also, I would try to make sure that the bathroom was available when he needed to get up and take a shower so that he could get ready for work. Just little things that would make his day go better and go more smooth was basically my goal. The other thing that is good to know, that if your husband is just starting out in a graveyard shift and he's never done that before, it does take a good amount of time for them to adjust to that. There's a groove you eventually get into, and you learn how to flip from night shift to day shift. I know I've heard some graveyard workers don't do that. They just stay on graveyard, but it makes it difficult if you want to go do anything or you want to conduct any business during the day. To be constantly on a graveyard shift doesn't necessarily always work. Eventually, my husband got to the point where he would come home on the first day of his weekend and he would only sleep like 4 hours, and then he would get up. And that gave him a much longer time during the day, and he was able to go to bed and sleep at least most of the night that way. Also, because he worked during the weekends and his days off were during the week, if we decided we wanted to do something with the children, then we would just take the day off. That's the beauty of homeschooling and the flexibility you get with homeschooling. And whatever it was that we were going to do became that day's field trip. And so we learned how to adjust and accommodate our life around that. But as he's working to adjust to figuring out his groove and figuring out what works in his schedule, the best thing for a wife is just to be patient and don't make that any more difficult for him than it is. I will say that in all honesty, I did not enjoy that shift. Always my dream was to have him working a day shift, and that never happened. He worked over 30 years, and most all that time was spent on the night shift. I learned to accept that and just adjust to that and make life the best that I possibly could. I think that the worst thing that a wife can do in a situation that they're not happy with is to nag or cause problems with that. I think even the Proverbs talks about the contentious wife. Proverbs 27:15 says, "A constant dripping on a day of steady rain and a contentious wife are alike." And you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that person. And in Romans 12:18 it says, "If possible, so far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men." And that includes your husband. And so you don't want to be the contentious, quarrelsome wife who is unhappy with the schedule, and you want to do everything that you can on your part to make it work and to make it as smooth as possible for your husband. I always think it's good to remember that our husbands are doing the very best that they possibly can to provide and support the family. And there is nothing more discouraging to a hardworking husband than a wife who is not happy and is complaining. So it's okay to have, obviously, sit down and have conversations. Eventually he may not enjoy the shift and want something different too. Or it just may be life's reality like it was for me. And so no good comes of being discontent or dissatisfied with what my circumstance is, and causing my husband to be discouraged in the process. So basically my way of doing life was to be happy, be content, and continue my life just as if my life was a typical schedule. We did school Monday through Friday. They gave us time in the evenings for Awanas, or on the weekend for my kids to have time with friends, or church on Sunday morning. So we just ended up functioning in our normal way, and I did that while I supported him the best that I could to make it as easy as possible for him to sleep and to get to work and to do what he needed to do. I realize this topic does not apply to everybody, but if you are a wife and you have children and your husband is working a schedule that would be considered different than what the normal is, maybe this would be helpful to you. These tips are helpful to you. And if you know a woman that is dealing with this and struggling, maybe my video would have some tips for her that would be helpful, and maybe you could pass that along. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here and listening to this Q&A. And in the future, if you do have any other questions, make sure you just leave them in the comment section below for me. I have no problem answering questions. So, all right, I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.